Hello, and welcome to the Core Brands podcast, where we speak with people who aren't just doing what they love, but they are creating meaning for others in the process. Today's guest is Johanna King, a photographer based in Dublin, originally from France, and someone who describes her work as photos that bottle up the magic. I love that. Johanna has spent more than a decade capturing the lives of families and the essence of brands, not with forced smiles or polished perfection, but through natural, unposed moments that feel real. She's a mother of two, and her superpower, in her words, is using her camera to stop time. I cannot wait to dive into this conversation. Hi, Johanna. You're very welcome to the Core Brands podcast. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. So, Johanna, as you know, I always start my episodes with a little icebreaker question. I always like to, start with something fun. So I researched a little bit about you, and I would like to ask you, let's say your teleportation superpower suddenly kicks in. Where are you going with your camera in hand?
Oh, there's so many places I would want to go. But the one place I would like to go back is Corsica. That's the island at the south of France, and that's off the coast of Italy. I haven't been there for a very long time, and I think it just encapsulates everything that I love. Mountains, the sea, transparent, clear water, smells, and yes, it's a gorgeous place. But with my camera, it would maybe be somewhere different, somewhere with a lot of life and a lot happening, so that I could capture, a different culture. Maybe I like to go places that are really, really, really different, so that your entire being is heightened and looking for things, because everything is new. It's very exciting and interesting to me, so I really enjoy that.
That's so interesting. So now talking a little bit more about how did you start your business? Was photography something that you were always interested? Did it start like an hobby, or how did you start it on this industry?
Yeah, so the photography part has probably always been there. At home, my dad was the person taking the photographs, and so I had little albums that my mom would make with the little slip-in prints in it, and those were really, really precious to me. I really loved looking back through my childhood. And then I guess I don't know if I was the one asking for a camera or if I got one for a birthday, but I got my first film camera when I was a child, and then I took loads of photos for many years after that. But I don't think it entered my mind to do it as a job until I was already doing something else. I think photography, at least in France, is not something that anybody is going to suggest you do as a job. Do something
Yeah,
safer, do
and
something more.
creative jobs, people are always like, "You're going to be starving. Nobody's going to."
Yeah. And I did look for like a school or something after high school, and there was just the one school, I think, in France that I found. I'm like, well, 26 spots for the whole country, I'm not gonna get in. And so I went and studied web and graphic design, and then that was my job for many years. But
So
when I
that
was
explains your branding and your beautiful website.
Oh,
When I
thank
was
you.
researching, I was like, wow.
Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. I'm always refining and doubting and going back at it, and so sometimes I have to appreciate that it's probably not that bad.
Sorry for interrupting you.
But yeah, while I did enjoy the creative side of graphic design. There's a lot that's not so creative when you're working with companies, and it's more about doing what they need. And I don't think I had a passion for it. I probably enjoyed more like the back end and coding and side of it, because it's quite challenging and it can be fun, but also the technology evolves so quickly that you feel like you just can't quite keep up with, the UX design, and phones started coming and all of that. And it's just like, it feels like you just can't stay on top of things.
Yeah.
And then the camera was always there, and I needed to upgrade my camera. And I was like, okay, well, I upgrade to a professional grade camera and try to do that on the side. Or will I just go for another DSLR and just keep doing it as a hobby? And that was probably that pivotal moment where I was like, well, let's try it out. Obviously, probably all the listeners know that you don't just try a business on the side, and the clients just don't just start calling you because you decided you're going to be a photographer. So this is what I've learned, as I did it. But I think it was a good thing anyway, because even when you start, you still have a lot to learn, by photographing friends and friends of friends. And I did second shooting for a wedding photographer local to me, so I may have done like 10 or 12 weddings with her. And I think that's where you really learn the craft and also see the business side of it, while you're not relying on it for your paying your bills at the end of the month.
Yeah. We always have to start somewhere, and you touched it there perfectly. Like, it's doing different things and working in different formats and for different projects that we capture and really experiment. And then at the end, we get to choose and to see what really fits our
Yeah,
personality.
that's it. Because when most photographers as well will start not really knowing what they're going to photograph as a job, because as a hobby you can photograph anything you want. And whether
Yeah.
you're photographing, making landscape photographs, travel photographs, you photograph your friends and family, I like flowers and all of that, but what are you going to choose to sell to the world? So unless you try everything and fail and realize, well, I don't really enjoy this, oh, I like that better, well, you can't really be, um, yeah, you can't really sell it if you don't really even know what you like,
Yeah,
to
yeah. And if
do.
you're not like truly passionate about what you're actually doing, it will be very hard to sell. Have you changed your mind in the way in your career? Like, let's say you started by photographing weddings, and you might think that that's the route you want to go, and then eventually you change. No, I actually prefer to photograph families or brands.
Yeah, for sure. I think I started thinking I will do some family sessions and babies in a lifestyle style, so which means a little bit of posing but still natural. And I will try weddings to see if I like it, because I don't think unless you try a full wedding day. And some photographers love it and some photographers hate it. And I was a little bit in between. I did it for a few years. And the reason I stopped wasn't even that I didn't like photographing weddings. It's like I am someone who doesn't really like knowing what's going to happen 2 years from now. I didn't like having an inquiry for 2023 when it was still 2019, for
Yeah.
example. And while it can create security and wedding photographers may really enjoy having their calendar booked for the following year, I didn't know where I would be. And I suppose maybe that's because I was having children. So I had my daughter in 2015, just 2 years after starting my business, and I had my son in 2022. So yeah, there's that unpredictability of,
Yeah.
you know, motherhood, family life, and weddings don't really gel so well together. Um, but this being said, I would love to do a few a year still, because it's they're amazing events with a lot of joy and people being together celebrating their love for each other. And so that's totally something that I love to capture, especially if it has children
Yeah.
involved.
Yeah, but it's a lot of pressure as well, I suppose, photographing a wedding. Like, I always feel that it's such an important day
Yeah,
that,
that's it. I didn't want to go at the beginning. That's why I did second shooting. I didn't want to just go and photograph somebody's not the best day of their lives, but it's such an important day
yeah,
without having the experience, because it's not just the photography, it's how the day runs. You have to be someone who helped them nearly like
The
get
story.
ready.
Build a story.
Yeah, you tell the story, but you're like, you can help them throughout the day with the timeline, for them to, plan what's going to happen. When are they going to have the group photos? Where are they going to have their couple photos? How much time do they need to plan for this and that? Sometimes they're not sure, so they look for you to answer those questions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said that photography is your version of a superpower, the closest you can get to stopping time, and I love that.
Mm,
Can you
mm.
expand a little bit on that?
I think when you think of a wedding, for example, or being a parent and having small children, it goes by so fast. And like a wedding day is, everybody tells you it's going to go by so fast, but when you're at the end on the next day, you're like, oh my goodness, we planned this for a whole year or 2 years, and I can hardly remember what happened yesterday, and it was so intense. So that photographer is capturing that for you to be able to relive it again and again and again and again and again, and you get those rushes of emotions again and again and again. Otherwise, it's gone, and you put all that effort and all that love, and all the people were there together, so you can't remember it all. And of course now we have phones and etc. to capture some of it, but none of your guests are going to be able to capture those in between moments and pay attention to the entire story of the day, and really, give it to you in one collection, one story for you to go through again. And in when it comes to small babies and small children, obviously it's more than a day, so it doesn't go as fast as a wedding, but still they keep
Gosh,
on changing.
yeah,
Every single day you notice something different, especially in the first few years. And like, I have a 2.5 years old. I already cannot remember him as a baby. I can't remember it. Like, I can't feel it. I can see it in photos. I know he was a baby. I can picture it in my mind, but I can't remember it. It's strange.
yeah.
So the photos help me sometimes look at the photo and just go back, actually go back to the feeling of holding or touching the little toes, or having, the little head on your chest or something. So, of course, I can't stop time, but that's as close as it gets.
Yeah, yeah. I see you, like, even now you were talking and I was just thinking, yeah, my daughter's gonna turn 13 in a couple of weeks, and I feel like she was just a baby last month, you know what I mean? Like, where these all years are gone. Thankfully there's loads of photos, most of them on the phone, I gotta be honest, and not as many printed as I would like.
Hmm.
What's your take on printing our phone photos? I know that there's a lot of photographers, that keep telling us you should print your photos once a month, maybe pick your favorite ones, get them printed. And I take on that, and sometimes I print them, but then another couple of months go by and I don't print, and then it's
Yeah.
just a mess in my cloud.
So that's the second part of my business that I started in 2020 is teaching parents how to take better slash more meaningful photographs of their families and get them printed. Because to me, until they're printed, you don't get their full power. First of all, like, once you hold a printed photo in your hands or you look at an album, you can really look at the images, and they really transmit something more than when you're looking at it on the screen. You're kind of like sliding left or right or go up and down
Yeah,
so
yeah.
quickly, you don't really take it in. And we have so many that we get a bit of like, oh, all those photos, okay, it's great, this one is cute, but we
There's too many.
I'd rather you have 10 photos printed of your daughter in 13 years than 2000 on your cloud. And
Yeah.
or you have the 2000 on your cloud but you have 13 printed than have none, because those 13 are just, they're great. I mean, so I keep going, trying to teach parents or encourage them or give them tools to print more. At the end of the day, I'm late. I'm completely behind on my own printing, completely behind. And I had to accept that I cannot stay on top of it. So done is better than perfect. There are ways to automate it a little bit more. There are now printing companies that let you kind of add photos to an album and they print it when it reaches a certain amount. Or, the companies are trying to help parents print more, but by not spending,
That much
so
money.
much time. But I think just done is better than perfect. It's like I want to gift calendars, printed calendars to my parents before, for Christmas. So I know that just before Christmas, I go into a big rush of like sorting my images of the full, the year and picking an image for each month or, 1 to 4 images for each month. And then I get the calendars printed and I get one printed for myself. Now that it's designed, why not have one for myself? And so it's like that deadline that helped me do something.
It's a great idea.
And then it could be that, there's a quiet time during the year where like, okay, in January, that's going to be the month where I do maybe one album for our vacation from last year. And then you're in January, it's cold and everything, and you look through, your vacation photos, and it's just like that 1 week or 2 weeks, maybe a month. It's not like the entire year. It's too
Yeah.
overwhelming. And you just go and make that album with just those photos and you get it printed and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so proud. I'm so happy I did that. It's okay. You didn't print the last 13 years. You just did that one holiday. And then, it makes you happy every single time you look at it.
Yeah. These are great tips. I think, like, personally for me, my struggle is not even getting into the phone and getting them printed. It's more like selecting the ones that I get printed, because, and I was just talking the other day with my husband about that. Remember those times where we had, an analog camera? We took, I don't know, 36 photos, and then we had to go to the shop to get them done. And the expectation of seeing actually the photos printed. I remember as a kid, that was kind of like the
Mm,
highlight after the
mm,
holidays, seeing the photos. Even, some of them, like 2 or 3, were like burned or blurred
yeah.
or they were
Yeah.
not great. But now, because we take photographs mostly with our phone, it's just click, 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 click. So I might
Yeah. We
have
take too many. Yeah.
10 photos where like only the eyes are moving, and then I need to go inside of each one of them to see which one is actually the good one to print.
Yeah.
So I think that's more my struggle, but your advice is great, like getting a quiet time through the year and just getting some of the albums done.
Yeah. I always encourage as well everyone to take a piece of paper and to try and create like a little bit of a workflow starting from the end goal. So everybody will have a different end goal. Some people might want loads of frames on their walls, and I'd like to have books because you can put more images and then work backwards from that. How am I going to get the images selected? If you're on the phone selecting images, I would burn out. It would feel like a chore. I would throw my phone through, I would just throw it. And it nearly makes me feel sick even thinking about it because it's such a small screen. How are you going to pick images on a phone? So some people are great at that. Or, I don't know, Google now, they can see which ones are blurry, let you know they're blurry. It removes the blurry one. It might show you 10 photos that are similar. You pick, now there are tools, AI tools to help you
Yeah,
get rid of the duplicates and get rid of the blurry ones. I haven't explored that. But if you find ways to do that selection, that's actually more pleasant. I like to do it on my laptop or my computer. I cannot select photos. And I have
yeah,
tools where I go click, 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 and I tag 1 star, 2 stars, and I go through them really fast. And then I go back and like, okay, now I need to narrow them down a little bit more for an album. For example, I can't print 1,000 photos. Let's reduce it. But I don't overthink either. And I pick photos that are making me laugh or bringing back a memory. I don't necessarily go for the most perfect one.
yeah,
And then I also, my husband take photos on his phone, and I'm not in the photos I'm taking usually unless he takes the camera. So I bring in his phone photos and then I'm picking photos where I'm in it so that the album also has me
yeah,
figuring in it.
yeah. Great
It takes
tips.
time. It takes time. I'm not I'm not saying it doesn't. Has to be not a priority, but it has to be something you want. Otherwise you're never gonna make it put it on your to-do list, that's for sure.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then your tagline is bottling up the magic, and I absolutely love the wording of that. And I'm just wondering, when it comes to photograph families, and I don't know, do you photograph only small kids, or do you get to photograph, teenagers and older kids? Sometimes bottling up the magic with older kids might be a bit of a challenge. I would say, as a parent, that to get my daughter to smile on the photo, it depends on the day and the mood. So do you face those type of challenges? Like the parents are on board, but the kids sometimes are like, "Oh, here we go again."
Yeah, so to start with, I think I'm going to redefine like what magic is to me, because I was trying to think about it, and that's something that's like as emerged in the last few weeks. That's really, this is what I've always wanting. Like, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, is to capture the magic in people's lives that they might not even notice themselves is there, because maybe we think of magic, or we think of beauty as something extraordinary or refined or polished or posed, and to me the magic is actually not in those things. They are in the simple things. I was trying to think of an analogy that's not for families, and I thought of like going to the west of Ireland, let's say Connemara, and it's a grey day, and then suddenly the cloud parts and you have the sun coming up and it's lighting everything around you. It is magic. When that happens in the west of Ireland, in the southwest of Ireland, you're just in awe of the colors and the light, and you notice everything, and it just makes you feel so happy. Yet it's not extraordinary. It is just the landscape and the sun and the clouds. And when I photograph families, the magic to me is not the kids laughing and being happy. Obviously that's part of the magic, when they're completely themselves and they are not posing. The expressions that you get are magic, because it's completely them, it's their essence. But I also love when they're concentrating and their little tongue comes out, or some kids are super, super expressive when they're unhappy, like, they're going like this, and their lip goes out, and the entire face changes. And then the magic is also of observing how the parents are parenting and loving their children. Each family is different.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be huge, big hugs and overtly, physical affection. But you notice those things, because I'm an external person to their family. I can notice those things, and those things are magic, because there's what is part of their own story, and they are not even seeing those things, and they're going to forget about them. So in terms of older children, obviously I have a slight preference for toddlers and young children and babies, because they are not self-conscious and they are being themselves, and that's all they can do. And it's amazing to look at them and be inspired by them, whether they are like super, super, super chatty and they tell you everything, or they're a little bit more shy, but they concentrate on something. I just remember a little girl, she was 2 years old, and she was starting to put like a ring on each finger from like the jewelry box, and she's concentrating on it. It's just gorgeous to look at. And then the older they get, they might get a little bit more self-conscious at the beginning, and then they forget about me after 2 or 3 hours. I'm like, why are you still taking photos of us? But they haven't been self-conscious for 3 hours. They just start to forget about me, and they just give me everything, like the little ones, the mischiefs, the tantrums. The longer I stay, the more I get the chance to observe the less happy. I don't know. I don't like calling it unhappy, but the more truer side of their personality, which I love. And then teenager stage is going to be even different. I think they have to be on board. I had a mom last year. It broke my heart, but she said, I want to do a session with my son, my husband. And then she came back, she's like, sorry, it's a categoric no. They just do not want. I think there may have two teenage girls. They don't want it. I'm like, well, there's no point forcing anyone. Obviously, I know that my sessions are super easy for the family because I'm not going to ask them to do anything and to perform and to smile for me and to sit here and look at me. But for a teenager, it might still be way too much and might be cringy. And why do you want to capture us being a
Yeah,
family and loving each other? Ooh.
that's so familiar to me.
But I had a family, they were like, okay, we want to do those photos. And we went to a park. It wasn't necessarily in their home, but we went to the park and we went for a walk, and there were things to do, interactions that they were having. I think obviously you don't want them to be on their phones for the entire session, so you kind of involve them in an activity. So they went to the park, and they saw squirrels and they were trying to climb in trees and things like that. Or board games. A board game can be great to just get them to interact, and then you get their personality when you put a bit of competitiveness into like a Uno or a Monopoly, and then they just come out of their shells, and then that's the magic. You capture them not being a teenager, when their child side comes out again. And then you can capture as a parent. When it comes to teenager, I always say you can try to capture things that tells a story about who they are, but without them being necessarily in the picture either. I don't know how they would like, or if your daughter would like to take a photo of her room the way it is now. But sometimes it tells more, it tells a lot about a person, taking photos of the things they leave around, or maybe you have photos where she's not necessarily facing the camera, but she's doing something. In one of my courses, one of the moms took photos of her daughter during the final revisions of her exams, the Living Cert. So it's like the light coming out of the wall and she's just doing whatever she's doing.
Yeah,
It's not a photo of her smiling and laughing, but it's a really moment in time. And that's going to bring back memories, obviously, to the daughter. It's like, oh gosh, thrilling. Oh, and then for the mom, she captured the essence of that time.
yeah, that's a great point. I actually did that a few days ago. My daughter was in the kitchen table studying for her exams, and I just took the photo from behind so she wouldn't give out to me. She didn't see
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
Um, and it was great. Like, it was a big mess. Like, my kitchen is like
yeah,
literally a war zone at the
yeah.
moment. But the light was coming in, and like the whole setup, it like felt so natural that I was
Yeah,
like, I can look at this picture like 10 years from now and think, look at
you're gonna
her
f- you're gonna
studying.
feel it. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
actually gonna be a feeling.
And it was far from perfect. Her hair was a mess, everything was a mess, but the moment was there, and that's exactly the image that I want to remember in a few years and in the future. And I think she would enjoy to look at it as well when she's older.
Yes, maybe not straight away, but then in
No.
in in years from now, she's gonna love it. And
Yeah.
the mess is it's what our homes are messy when we live in it, and if we start tidying up, the moment is gone. Um, so I'm glad you took that photo. I like, oh yeah, like
Yeah,
well
loads
done.
of that. I do loads of that, like kind of like sneaky photos when she's not looking, she's doing something, she's practicing. Even when she's like, my husband is doing some work with her, and I just go in the door and I'll take the photo. I love to do those. But moving a little bit now from the family's photos, you also do commercial and brand photography, correct?
Yes.
How different is
Um,
that aspect of your business?
so it is different in the sense that we're taking the photos with a purpose that is not
Yeah.
just capturing the moment. But I like to think that I incorporate the same values and the same style into those photographs, with the aim of the photos being that they are still authentic. Because we know now that while brands have to portray a professional side to their business, they also have to portray an authenticity for their audience to connect with them. And I think we're going more and more into that. Because we say people buy from people, or buy people, can't remember the exact quote, but they're not buying the product or the service necessarily, but they're buying from you. specifically because they connected with you, your personality. I mean, that's probably more for small businesses than the big, huge brands. But I think if thinking about the entire concept of the brand and the website, if everything needs to be aligned, it will depend on how polished your brand is. And then the photographs will have to reflect that. So that's the part before the shoots, that's the collaboration part with the business, and where you just discuss what kind of photographs are going to be, fitting with your brand, and then I can work around that. So obviously the more documentary style works better for more visual type of brands, whether they're artists. I can document their process. I worked with a massage therapist recently, so I could really capture her working. There was a wedding dress maker, things like that. But even if it's not a visual job, they are photos you can take of them working or doing something more personal that they can showcase of, on their website. Say, this is me doing something that I love, that my audience might also connect with.
Yeah, and that's so important. Like, even it's a brand photography, and as you said, it fits a different purpose than just capturing the moment. I still believe it has to feel natural and a little bit, and like it's staged, but to look unstaged, if that makes sense. So
Yes.
it kind of like connects with the right people, because if you are more like an informal person, you don't want to have, a portrait of yourself in a suit when super serious. Like, you
Yeah.
kind of want to give that hint away for people when they visit your website. They kind of like
Yeah.
understand the type of person you are. And as a brand and web designer, like for me, like photography is one of the most important things. And if it's not done right, it can completely ruin any brand and web design work, because there's no point of having branding on point, a beautiful website, if then the photos are, selfies that you took, not really well thought, or even stock photos.
Stock photos. Yeah, I remember as a web designer looking for hours looking for the right photo, and that didn't exist. Like, you could.
And these days, like, I've been working in design for 20 years now. It's actually 20 years this year, and it's been a big change in the stock photography.
It's better. Yeah.
It's much better, and there's much more options, and there's a lot of more
Natural.
offering and, styles, because before it was just like you could
White
tell straight
background.
up.
Smiling families, white teeth, white background.
Yeah, and then you can see the same photos across
Mm.
multiple brands. You're like, this is not original. Like, at least try a little bit harder to find something different. But yeah, that's a really interesting take. So you can still bring that magic and that unstage kind of like approach to the brand photography.
Yeah. And I'd love to run something by you. I hope that's
Yeah,
okay, because
of
there's
course.
this new offering that I'm thinking of developing, and it actually getting even deeper into that, being natural and authentic. And I'm wondering whether there's not a market for that, but people wanting this, and would be to just create portraits as such. So not like doing something, and just being, and actually letting go of all that control that we constantly have. I think as a business owner, trying to market and trying to be on social media and trying to put website pictures, photos on the
Yeah.
website, there's still that part of like, yeah, I want it to be natural, I want it to be authentic, but there's still like a little bit of control there, that has to be this way and that. And I'd love for women especially to just be able to have photos that are just them, and trying to capture who they are with just not much at all, like no props, not necessarily a background. Like, obviously we can explore things and bring in a little bit of props if we wanted, but the purpose wouldn't be to create a brand photo, but the purpose would be to create a portrait that really capture the person. I don't know if that's clear, like that magic that we as external to someone we see. You know, when you're a room full of women and you look at them and you always see, oh gosh, she has gorgeous eyes, or she's such a beautiful smile, or I love how she does this. And then the women themselves are so often very self-critical.
Yeah.
And it feels very wrong. It feels like a shame that someone would just say, oh no, look at my hair, look at this and that. Well, all we see is their
The problems and, the things, the flaws.
Yeah, but from the outside, all we see is the beauty and the power and the everything, the energy, and then they are self-critical. So I'd love to have portraits or create portraits that are about
That's a great
capturing that
idea.
in a very stripped down way, you know. But I'm not sure if
Yeah, I
people
think
would be
that's
like,
a great
yeah,
idea, and I think you might have something there to explore.
okay,
Um, yeah, I would love to take part if you
okay.
want something like that. Because, like regarding the props, and I've done 2 photo shoots since I started my business, and I've always used props. I always want to have kind of like a more natural look in my photos. I didn't want, because I come from the corporate world, and I completely want to disassociate from it. But with the props, the problem is that when the photo has a book or as a microphone or has, something, people will immediately look at the prop. They won't see you. And if you are stripped from that, um, people will look into your eyes, and our
Mm,
eyes say a lot, I think.
mm,
Well, at least I look a lot into people's eyes, because you can read um, you can read a person from their look or from their smile. You can see if it's sincere, if it's forced,
yeah.
etc. So I think that's a great idea. That's my
Okay,
take as a designer. Like, I'm not a photographer, so you can correct me on anything that I said, but that's just my personal impression. Yeah, that's great.
I'll keep exploring and I'll have a few people trying it out. So I'll give you a call.
Yeah, yeah, keep me in mind. Johanna, this conversation has been great. Is there anything you want to mention that I haven't asked you? Is there anything you want to tell me?
I don't think so. I think we've covered everything, more or less.
Okay. So now I'm going to invite you to share with us what's the next steps for your brand, apart from this exploration now that we just talked about. What's happening? Is there anything you want to share with our listeners, where they can find you? The stage is yours.
All right. So I think the next step for my brand is exactly that. I'm starting to really own this idea of capturing the magic in childhood, in families, in events, but also in hopefully in women going forward. And yeah, that it's all together one purpose, say. And so I'm excited about this next phase. Very excited. And then you can find me on johannakingphotography.com. So it's Johanna with an H and 2N. And I am Johanna King Photography on Instagram. I'm also on LinkedIn and Facebook, a little bit everywhere. And I'd love to hear from anybody who listens to the podcast what they thought, or if they are putting their hand up for for portraits. What did we call them? Strip down portrait.
Down portrait. Sounds great. Sounds really great. I will share your links on the show notes as well, so the listeners can access your links, and they can reach out to you as well. Johanna,
Well,
it was
thank you.
a pleasure to have you on the show, and I wish you all the best, and I can't wait to hear from you.
Thanks a million,
Bye.
Roberta. That was great. Bye bye.
Bye. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Core Brands Podcast. I hope you found insight, inspiration, or even a little nudge to take action in your own brand journey. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who would find it valuable. And if you want to keep the conversation going, you can find me over on Instagram at Design by Roberta. Thanks for tuning in, and until the next time.